You know what time it is.
Showtime.
We're born to bounce.
Feel the bass.
I tell ya.
Going to bounce.
Get ready. It's showtime.
Welcome to Showtime with the Apollos. I am Brent Allen, your host, joined as always by my man on the left, Ren Daxt. Ren, what's up, buddy?
I'm on the left.
You are.
I have leg room. I'm good. I'm good.
You got the comfy seat this time, huh?
Yeah, I think between being able to have leg room, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the last Apollos podcast, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I think it's the best thing that's happened to me this week since the Apollos lost.
Is the fact that you're on the left side?
I have leg room, yes.
Wow, that's. I won't ask about your weekend then. Doesn't sound like it'd be that great if this is the best thing.
That's pretty well. It was really cramped.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a complainer, so I'm not going to tell you how bad it was that I was going through, being smushed up on the wall, so I could be facing accordingly, so we could look like we were talking back and forth. It was a sacrifice.
Ren, I appreciate your sacrifices for the sake of the show here, but with all of that, to avoid a 10-minute segment on this like we did last week, well, we go ahead and jump into it. This is our show, Showtime with the Apollos. Of course, this is the show where we are talking about the brand new Alliance League, our so to speak, hometown team, Ren, the Orlando Apollos, just down the road from us there in Orlando. Literally kind of about halfway between the two of us, actually.
Splitting the difference.
Yeah. But it's been fun. We are now past the halfway point of the season, and not good news coming out of Orlando this weekend.
No, it was. We'll get into it probably a little bit later, but sort of the overall encompassing theme was, I think Garrett Gilbert easily had his worst game.
Yeah,
as the Apollos quarterback.
Yeah,
and now I'm having some serious issues. It was something we never talked about. I never really brought it up because it only happened like once in a while. Mm-hmm. Was the inside pursuit from the linebackers when runs are bounced out. Like it's pretty non-existent.
Right.
If the play is meant to go outside, they do a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
If the play is meant to go between the tackles, they do a pretty good job. But if the play is bounced out to the outside, either with a fake in the middle and then a pitch out, or a jet sweep with a fake down the middle, or the running back gets to the line and bounces to the outside, the inside linebackers are really getting lost in the wash and not being able to even get close to the ball carrier until the first down is already picked up.
Right. So lots of that, and we are definitely going to get into all of that. Ren, tonight, though, with that, I'm sorry, before I get here, a little bit of housekeeping. I would like to say hello to those of you who are joining us live. We've got two platforms that people can join us. You can join us over at mixler.com/thepewtercast, where you're getting the audio-only feed. There is also a chat room over there for you guys to engage. But to those of you who are joining us right here on the beautiful platform here on YouTube with all of our streaming and everything like that, I'd like to say hello to you guys as well. And then for all of you who are downloading the show later on the podcast feed, hi to you guys as well. No chat room for you guys, but you can always email us your thoughts on the show or tweet at us to the Pewtercast, pretty much across everything out there, pewtercast@gmail.com if you'd like to do an email. Now, that said, Ren, I got two things I want to throw at you. First, we've got a special guest here for the show tonight.
We do. I'm excited. I have some questions for him.
Me too.
So we haven't talked to him since before the season started.
That's right. And, of course, the person we are talking about, as Ren just kind of referenced, this will be Tom Alexander, who is the team reporter. For Buccaneer fans, it's basically their Casey Phillips.
Scott Smith.
Fair
Casey
enough.
Phillips is pretty much all video.
Right. Like
she doesn't do any writing.
True. Casey's title is team reporter. But you're right. It's Scott Smith really is the one who does much more of the reporting, the content editing, which is, I guess, job description wise. Certainly, Tom Alexander is closer to Scott than he is Casey. But either way, It's one of those guys, Buccaneer fans. That's who we're talking to. So this is a person who's embedded with the team. They know what's going on, and be able to give us some insight. I'm excited to get Tom in here, kind of like we said at that halfway point, check in, see how things have changed over a half of a season. And obviously we'll talk about the game from last night as well, because I have certainly some questions I'd like to kind of run past him. But Ren, before he calls in, he'll be calling in here in just a few minutes. And by the way, for those of you that are joining us live, if you want to call in, the phone lines will be open, but not until after Tom gets here. But Ren, what I'd like to do is just sort of read a little short recap of the game.
Sure.
For those of our listeners who may not have been able to watch the game, I thought we'd try it this week. And those of you guys that are listening, shoot us back an email or a tweet or something like that and let us know if this worked for you, because I'm totally experimenting here. But Ren, if you'll indulge me for 60 to 90 seconds, I'd like to go through this and read this.
And go.
All right, so here we go. So Orlando opened the game with a 12-play, 75-yard scoring drive that took nearly 7 minutes off the clock.
Yeah, it started out really great. It was like, ho-hum, here we go.
Right. The Arizona defense seemed to have no answer for Dernis Johnson, the running back here in Orlando. But then Arizona got the ball, and while the Hotshots struggled to get in the end zone on their first two drives, kicker Nick Folk, yes, Bucs fans, that Nick Folk, managed to hit not one, but two 50-plus yard field goals to wind up tying the game.
Yeah, that hurt.
Yeah. The Apollos eventually answered back with a field goal of their own, but after that, the wheels kind of fell off. Orlando's apparent bend but don't break strategy, which we've heard a lot about in Tampa as well, but we've certainly heard a lot about it over the course of the season. That strategy really seemed to stop working. Arizona put together a long touchdown drive, and then Apollo's quarterback Garrett Gilbert threw his first interception of the season. It didn't lead to any points for the Hotshots, but with Gilbert under duress quite often throughout the rest of the game, as the offensive line didn't look nearly as sharp either, he threw almost a few more throughout the rest of the night. It was.
He's been getting lucky throughout the year, honestly. Yeah. Like he has, he will sort of throw the ball up for grabs to avoid a sack sometimes, and all of them have fallen harmlessly to the ground. The interception. And like you said, the first one for the season, which is a big reason why the Apollos have been winning games, is not turning the ball over. Mm-hmm. A big reason why the Hotshots haven't. It was really a really great play by the linebacker. Mm-hmm. Like it was like 3rd and 15 or something, and I think if the pass was complete, the receiver is going to have to break a tackle or make a guy miss, still get the first down anyway. But it wasn't a terrible or a dumb pass. Like, what were you thinking? It was the guy made a really athletic. He jumped high and behind him.
Yeah,
at the same time.
The throw was well over his head. The guy just made a really athletic leap.
Yeah.
Let me do the second half here before Tom calls in. Things did not get a whole lot better for the Apollos in the second half. The offense continued to look out of sync. Apollo's linebacker Terrence Garvin, who was one of the leaders on defense, was ejected from the game for throwing a punch, and we're sure to talk about that because I didn't really see that. Despite losing Garvin, Orlando's defense did respond, stopping Arizona's offense and giving our offense multiple opportunities. The Apollos finally capitalized on one of those in the fourth quarter with a 6-play, 98-yard touchdown drive to take the lead within 10 minutes to play. Arizona came back, scoring a touchdown themselves and a 2-point conversion with 5 minutes and 17 seconds left in the fourth quarter to retake the lead. But the Apollos weren't done yet. They managed to drive down into Arizona territory, but Gilbert was sacked and fumbled just after the 2-minute warning. The Hotshots recovered the fumble, but Orlando forced a punt with just 55 seconds left on the clock. Apollos took over at their own 18-yard line after an incomplete pass. Gilbert found tight end Sean Price wide open down the right sideline for a 48-yard play. Price managed to get into the Arizona 34-yard line, but he stayed in bounds, which forced a spike by Gilbert to stop the clock. Another completion right after that. This one was for 23 yards to Jalen Marshall. Got Orlando down to the Arizona 8-yard line with just 10 seconds left to go. Plenty of time for one, maybe two more plays. Could have gotten in there and done it. A touchdown would have done it. Field goal would not have. We needed a touchdown. but a false start penalty on the Apollos when they tried to spike the ball to stop the clock led to a 10-second runoff and therefore ended the game for the Apollos, and they fell 5-1 on the season. It's not a bad record, Ren. It's really not, but it's 5-1. Kind of a crappy way to go, 22-17. Shout out to our special guest of the night, Tom Alexander, for writing the bulk of that thing. I added some of my own editorial into it, but that's
very nice.
Where a lot of that came from. So shout out to him for doing it. But that's kind of how the game went. It was a struggle. My overall impression of the game, Ren, it was a struggle, and got really exciting there at the end.
Yeah.
And just heartbroken as the game finished.
Yeah, the Apollos offense did absolutely almost next to nothing in quarters 2 through 4.
Right.
Or excuse me, the second and third quarter. The fourth.
Yeah, I was
quarter,
getting ready to ask about the fourth quarter. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So they drive down and they they finally put together a drive that ends in some points, and now they're leading. And you're feeling pretty good because there's 3-4 minutes left. Pretty much if the Apollos get a stop on defense, they could probably run out the clock.
Right.
But it didn't happen, and then you went over that exciting last drive and what a crappy way to win. But there were some bonehead plays, both of those. Especially the false start I want to ask about, because I think Gilbert was trying to hike the ball to have the Hotshots offside because they were switching personnel.
Uh-huh.
And I think somebody was on their side of the ball, but in doing that, he didn't pay attention to his lineman being set. It wasn't almost a false start, as in they didn't get down in their 3-point stance in time.
Right, and to that end, Garrett Gilbert in the press conference afterwards said about that specific thing, he said, at the end of the day, it's on me. I thought we had everyone set, but I need to do a better job of making sure we have the guys where we need them. Yeah. So, it's as any good quarterback at that point would do. He put the blame on himself. You're the guy at the podium. You take the brunt for that, But, yeah. It's something. Hey, that's Tom right there. Let's give him a call, or let's talk to him. Hello, is this Tom Alexander of the Orlando Apollos?
It is the very same.
What is going on, my friend Tom? How are you doing tonight?
How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Have you recovered after last night's heartbreak?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I would say so.
Maintain that 24-hour rule, right?
Yeah, exactly. 24 hours.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, it's Ren. Thanks for coming back on the show. I appreciate it. We have some questions for you, buddy.
Okay.
There's a couple things I want to start. Pretty much sort of the ins and outs of what's going on with the Apollos. I'm going to sort of throw out a possible excuse question. I'm sure you're going to shoot it down, but I think some of the listeners of the podcast don't really understand what's going on. First off, how are you enjoying driving from Orlando to Jacksonville and back at least once a week?
It's an experience. It's about 5 hours round trip. I don't do it every day, a couple times a week, usually for Coach's Weekly News Conference, and then for at least one, if not two, of the practices during the week. And, putting a lot of miles on the car lately.
Well, can you sort of explain to the listeners that because it was something that went through the news cycle, but it went through rather quickly. Can you explain the reason why you're going up there? And can you also tell us, do you think that it might be starting to wear on the Apollos?
The reasons in terms of the laws and things like that have been pretty widely reported. The Orlando Sentinel here in town has done a really good job of covering those aspects of it. But basically, the team has to practice 51% of its practices in the state of Georgia because of some vagaries of the workers' comp laws in Florida with regard to the way professional athletes are covered.
Right.
That's about as succinctly as I can put it. So for the month of March, the team has been living in a hotel in Jacksonville, and they drive about 40 minutes over the border into Kingsland, Georgia, where they practice at Camden County High School, and then they turn around and bus it 40 minutes back to the team hotel.
Yeah. So, sort of second part of that question, do you think that, living in a hotel, not ever getting to sleep in their own bed is starting to wear on the team? And when do they get to come home?
They get to come back. Sorry about that. My dog is freaking out a little bit. The team gets to come home after the end of the month. So heading into the next home game against San Diego. So following that last road game of the season against Memphis, the team will get to come home. In terms of it wearing on the team, I don't buy that, only because they were living in a hotel together here in Orlando.
All right.
It wasn't, the guys are from all over, and the season, granted they went to colleges in the state of Florida, but many of them are from other places. They live all over the state, and things like that. So it wasn't like they had built homes here in Orlando. Some of them had brought their families or their wives to town, and some of them had brought their families and wives up to Jacksonville. But it's not really that all that different from the routine here. They lived in the hotel. They ate their meals together. They had their meetings in the team hotel. So and they did that all through training camp also in San Antonio. So it's a different geographic location, but the routine is the same. So a lot of them have been out of their quote-unquote own beds for months now, basically since training camp started.
Well, Tom, I tell you, I actually live here in Jacksonville, so you talking about that round trip, I know exactly what you're talking about because I do that every home game, not twice a week. Actually, I was kind of tickled to find out that you guys were going to be up this way because I've been trying to make it up to the practices and stuff as much as the PR department guys will let me. But I know the struggle. I really do. Hey, listen, offline, I want you to tell me what hotel they're at. I'll take my grill out there and barbecue for them one night and do something. But, hey, I have one Alliance question for you, and then I want to actually get to your thoughts. I want to start with your overall thoughts. We're just over the midway point of the season for Orlando. I want to kind of get, what's your response? I know kind of coming off of a crappy game this past week, but overall, we'll talk about that. Then I want to dial down into this past game. But I read this earlier today. It was reported on the our local Tampa Bay SB Nation site, Bucks Nation. But it said that the NFL is actually considering two rule changes that they're plucking from the Alliance. One of them being the Sky Judge and implementing the Sky Judge, and the other one being that they're going to implement their own form of the onside conversion. They're contemplating it. They'll discuss it in the rule changes this year at that meeting. Have you heard about that? And what do you think about that? Because I know you were very pumped and positive about a lot of these different changes that the Alliance was making this year. First time we talked to you.
Yeah, I have seen that reported. I did. I read about the Sky Judge. I know the onside conversion thing was something that one of the teams proposed. Because I guess the NFL surveys each team about what it would like to see changed in terms of the rules, and then those are the things that they consider. So I don't remember if it was Denver or Kansas City that proposed the onside conversion or something similar to it. Not the exact thing that we do in the Alliance, but something similar. That's really cool. It was something that, as a fan and an outside observer heading into this whole thing when they first announced the Alliance, that I had hoped as an NFL fan that would someday become part of the NFL game. And if it does, that's great. I think it's an exciting play. It's safer for the players. So if that becomes reality, I think that's great. And I think it shows that, people are taking note of what's going on in the Alliance. And to be honest, this is not anything new. Having 2-point conversions in the pro game was something the USFL did back in the 80s before the NFL adopted it. Instant replay was something that the USFL pioneered before the NFL took it. So, there are other examples of that as well. The Skycam was something that was pioneered, I think, in the XFL. So, now it's become a regular part of professional football telecasts. So, these spring leagues often are laboratories for changes to the pro game that, the NFL, if the fans seem to like them and they have a positive impact on football, the NFL has been willing in the past and over the years to adopt those things. So I think that's only good for the game.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what the competition committees and stuff to do. I think we're probably closer to implementing the sky judge than we are to necessarily changing the onside kick / conversion rules. But we'll see. I'm excited. I think it should be fun. I got to be honest though, I'm a little disappointed that we haven't seen as many onside conversions in the Alliance this year because that was one of the things I was looking forward to the most. And I think like over the league, there's only been like a handful.
Yeah, there just haven't been a lot of situations where the game's called for it.
Right.
You know, the game's either been out of hand heading into the last 5 minutes, or teams that haven't needed to use it as much. And that's pretty true of the onside kick in other leagues too. You don't see it all the time.
Right.
So it's fun when you do see it, and it's even more fun when you see it successful.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, and I don't know what the numbers are, but I would say you're probably seeing it in the Alliance about as often as you'd see the onside situation in, say, the NFL or another league.
That's fair. All right, well, why don't we dial this down to the Apollos? So here we are. 60% of the season is now done in the books. We have 4 games left. Despite suffering our first loss, the Apollos are still 5-1 on the season, which is pretty daggum good. Some of these games have been what I'll call really hard-fought victories, and other ones have actually been pretty dominating. So what's your take? You're there with the team. You're embedded with the team. What's your take on how the season's going? How are the guys? How's Coach holding up? Give us some insight into what's happening there with the team.
The season I think is going really well. That last week's win over Birmingham was probably the most complete game that the team has played yet in terms of just being successful in all phases of the game. So their confidence was pretty high heading into this game against Arizona, but everyone also was well aware that Arizona was 2-3 on paper, but they were not a 2-3 football team. And Arizona had a couple of key guys get healthy this week that they hadn't had during that 3-game losing streak. Steven Johnson is one of their leaders on defense and certainly an emotional leader for them. Mm-hmm. And Richard Mullaney, the wide receiver, who had a big night against the Apollos this week. This was his first game back in a couple of weeks. So this was not the same Arizona team that had lost 3 in a row. We had the joint practice with them back in training camp. You're probably well aware that Las Vegas had them as the odds-on favorite to win the Alliance title before the season started. Mm-hmm. So it's a talented football team, and they played a really good game. And the Apollos had one of those nights where it just seemed like nothing was going right, and still managed to be in it right down to the end.
Yeah.
So that says something about the character of this team. And to be honest, Coach Spurrier was in a better mood after last night's game than he was after the Memphis game, and the Apollos won that game. So, I think it's one of those things in sports where you look around and it's no matter what you do, it's not working. So you just chalk that up to a learning experience and you take what you can from it, as opposed to playing a game where the team is not playing up to its potential and could be doing a lot better, let's say, than it was doing. And I think that was sort of his statement after the Memphis game, was that yes, it was a win, but the team should have played a lot better and had opportunities to play a lot better. Whereas, last night they were well aware that they had missed some opportunities and shot themselves in the foot, with penalties at the wrong times and things like that. That that you can't. You don't win a lot of football games when you lose the turnover battle and you have key penalties like that. And the Apollos have been fortunate to win the turnover battle in every game leading up to last night. Gilbert hadn't thrown an interception until last night. Mm-hmm. They'd only had three fumbles, and 2 of those were on punt returns. The other fumble was a strip sack for a touchdown against San Antonio back in week 2. Mm-hmm. So, that the team had a lot of, I don't want to say lucky breaks, but a lot of things went their way and that you need that if you're going to be undefeated. Like, you need some things to go your way because you're not going to dominate week in and week out. And, I think at this point now, I think some of the pressure is off. They won't say that, but I think it takes a little bit of the pressure off in terms of let's maintain the streak, let's keep it going, and now they can refocus on let's win a championship, which has been the goal all along.
Right. Now that there is a loss, fans are fans. It's real easy sort of not to pick apart the team where they need to improve when you're winning every game. It seems that Orlando, at least following through social media, has a real nice local fan base there with tailgaters and the amount of people going to games. Has there been any pushback now? Especially I'm talking about Coach Spurrier from the fans sort of on social media or things that you've heard. For example, Steve Spurrier's teams are always balanced when they're winning, but until he gets the lead, he doesn't really commit to the run too much. And that's sort of evident if you go back and look. It's like a 2-1, I think 24 runs, 48 passes. Or where he passed on 2 field goals, went for it on 4th down twice and missed both times. Has the halo of Steve Spurrier after his first loss sort of dimmed a bit with the Apollos fans?
I mean, you're always going to have unhappy folks, and with social media, they have a place to put all that unhappiness after a loss. I have seen a little bit of that. I would argue last night the Apollos came out and ran the ball early. They had in that first drive, Dearness Johnson had several carries to get them in position. They passed for the touchdown, but they ran the ball quite a bit, and it looked as if the plan going in was going to be run the ball, eat up clock, give Arizona as few opportunities on offense as possible so that, we know they're going to gain yards. Let's just limit the number of times they have a chance to gain yards so that we can outscore them. That kind of goes out the window when your drives start to fail in the red zone. You've got to settle for field goals, and then you get behind. Now you have to throw the football. So I don't know that it's coach not committing to the run necessarily until he's got the lead. That happened certainly earlier in the season. I don't think that was the plan this week going in, just from what I've seen. Not going for the field goal in those 2 spots. You could make the argument about the one drive where they got down to the Arizona 5. They probably could have, kicked the chip shot field goal, but the other 4th down on which they went for it, they were at the Arizona 34. You're talking about a 51-yard field goal, which would have been Elliott Fry's longest attempt of the season. I think his 47 might be his longest so far this year, and he's an extremely accurate kicker, and he does really well in the clutch, but I'm not quite sure how big his leg is. Coach Spurrier would know better than anyone how big Elliott's leg is because he coached him in college at South Carolina. He's very familiar with Elliott's abilities. So I'm sure that entered into that decision. Especially with an offense like that, it's 4th and 10. You go for it on the 34. Okay, either you throw an incompletion. Arizona starts with okay field position, not great, or you complete it and you come up short. Arizona starts with cruddier field position. So, that's kind of a numbers game too. A lot of coaches have started to go for it on 4th down in that end of the field, especially in that area. So, people can be upset about the loss, say whatever they want to say, but I don't know that it's the halo is tarnished or anything like that. It's one loss.
Right. We're not moving the numbers. We're not moving numbers from the back of the helmet to the side of the helmet, right? Because everybody's still looking at us from behind, right? Is that what Michael Waddle would say?
I haven't heard anything about that yet.
Yeah.
No, I mean, considering that we're in a position now where if we beat Atlanta next week, we'll clinch a spot in the Eastern Conference Championship already.
Okay.
I don't see any reason for anyone to hit the panic button at this point.
Sure. Let me ask you. You were talking about Gilbert, our quarterback. Just kind of looking at the numbers, he went 23 of 48 for 268 yards last night. Ends up the night with a 70.5 QBR. Is this his worst game, like statistically speaking, as an Apollo?
Yes. Yeah, it is. His lowest QB rating, lowest completion percentage. Obviously, first interception, first game where he's had 2 turnovers. Yeah, he looked a little out of sync early. Credit Arizona's secondary as well. They batted down a lot of passes. They bracketed Charles Johnson last night. I mean, Charles Johnson was held to his worst statistical performance of the season. That opened things up for Jalen Marshall, who had 98 yards. But even still, if you look at the numbers, those guys caught a lower percentage of their targets than they normally do, and some of that is because the coverage was so good.
Right. Yeah. I'm looking at those numbers right now, and you're right. They barely anybody got over a 50% catch rate on their targets. So.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of balls got batted down. Arizona dropped at least 3 interceptions that they could have had. And the Arizona front seven was in Gilbert's face all night long. The offensive line didn't have its best game either.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question of not only Gilbert, but also the offensive line really seemed to struggle. I went back and got to watch some of the highlights a little bit earlier tonight, and I'm an offensive line guy, so that tends to be where my eye goes after I've watched the first pass of the game. And they did seem to struggle quite a bit in this particular game.
Yeah, they did, but Arizona also has a very good pass rush. So it's one of those nights where you have your rhythm or you don't have your rhythm, and if you're playing against a really good team, they're going to exploit that. And Arizona did that, and it just threw everything off the rest of the night. After that first drive where things seemed to be clicking, then things didn't go as well, and it just sort of snowballs. And then you force some throws and try to make things happen. And then, that's when an interception happens, and one thing and then another and then another. And before you know it, you're, trying to get down at the 8-yard line to score a touchdown, to win the game. It was one of those nights.
Was that probably the biggest surprise, was Arizona's defense, how good they were? I mean, outside looking in, you're a fan, you follow the Apollos, you don't really follow the Hotshots too much. But you look into it, their quarterback was turning over the ball, their offense was turning over the ball, sort of putting their defense in bad positions. Is this the best defensive performance you think you've seen against Steve Spurrier and his Apollos offense so far this year?
Yeah, I would say so. So far, I mean, this was other than the San Antonio game in week 2. I would say this was the closest. It's kind of a feeling. As the game goes on, even if you're behind, you have that feeling as an observer and somebody who's not down on the field of this is still in hand. They're going to be okay. That kind of a thing. And in those 2 games, the opposing defenses were playing so well that seed of doubt started to creep into the back of my mind. So yeah, I would say this is the best defensive performance they've faced since week 2, maybe all season, just in the fact that, the Apollos were able to beat San Antonio and they weren't able to beat Arizona.
Right. Well, speaking of defense, Tom, and I don't know how much you can go into this, especially given your position, but our defense, Terrence Garvin gets ejected from the game for throwing a punch. Now, I got to be honest, I missed it live. I didn't see it. And in fact, I had to go back and rewatch the film on it like 2 or 3 times before it didn't look like a punch to me. I'll be real honest with you. It didn't. But, ref saw what he saw. It was kind of close quarters. It was in there. What's kind of your take on this whole thing with the punch and, how is the team responding to that? I know Coach Spurrier was not happy with that. Certainly you could tell by his reaction, and then certainly things he said in the press conference later, just talking about it, how much of an embarrassment it was. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't see the play live either. I happened to be out of the room and headed back up to the press box in the elevator. So I didn't see that play. I rewatched it when I got home, and from the Skycam angle on television, it didn't look like what the official said it was, but they're down there and I'm not, so it's hard to say what exactly happened. Of course, Coach Spurrier wasn't happy about it. You're never happy when one of your best players is ejected from the game, especially if it's because of something they're accused of doing. But it's an example of an issue that the Apollos defense has had a lot this season, is a lot of mental errors and penalties at just inopportune times. Defensive pass interference calls, defensive holding downfield. Something like this where, if you notice after Garvin leaves the game, Arizona's suddenly able to run the ball a lot more, and that extends drives. It's the defense is a different defense with Terrence Garvin not on the field. So that was another, inopportune time to have a penalty, especially one that severe, when you need a player like that to be in the game. So it's I think it was more a symptom of an ongoing issue that coach has, spoken about freely multiple times this season. In terms of how the team's responding, I didn't notice anything different in terms of the players' reaction after the game. It was just one of those things. I think they were more concerned about just losing the game in general, than they were about that particular play.
So Garvin's still on the team because Spurrier he don't put up that stuff.
Every bit of information I have says that is correct. He's still on the team.
You don't want to break some news right here on the Showtime with the Apollo show there, Tom?
I have nothing to break.
All right. Well, one more question, Tom. We'll get you out of here for the night. Regardless of all the failures of the team in so many ways, the shooting themselves in the foot, as so many people have put it, and just whatever. The team was still in it right up to the very end. I mean, they really could have won this game if not for a silly little false start penalty right there at the very end. I mean, Tom, that speaks tons to me about this team. I mean, there was no quit in this team. They didn't give up. They didn't just lay down and let the Hotshots run over them when things weren't working. Can you speak to any of that, that false start at the end, or just kind of how the team handled, the game and in light of a not really great game?
You're right. I think it absolutely speaks to the chemistry of the offense, the defense too. The defense had to come through and get some key stops there late in the fourth quarter to get the ball back. They had to force a couple of 3-and-outs to make sure that the offense had a chance to win the game and get back in it. It was not Garrett Gilbert's best night, but he still managed to command that drive to get them down the field. Sean Price, got wide open on that play, and you can, say whatever you want about him staying in bounds or whatever, but that was a huge play. And then Jalen Marshall has another huge play after that and makes a great catch to get them down inside the 10. The penalty, is what it is. Gilbert himself took the blame for it after, saying he needs to make sure that everyone is where they need to be before he calls set to spike that ball. So, and maybe he's right. I'm not sure. Maybe it was adrenaline. It's hard to say. That's a tough way to have a game end, of course, especially when you're close. But even then, you've got one, maybe two shots at the end zone to try and win the game from the 8-yard line against the secondary that's been pretty successful against you all night. So it was no guarantee that they'd come back, that they would have won the game had they been able to get a playoff down.
Yeah, that whole play was just weird. I have a theory that Gilbert was trying to catch actually the Hotshots offsides from guys coming in and off the sideline, but neither here nor there. It's a loss. We had to talk about it. We're still huge Apollo fans. I still think we have the best team in the league. I think, our receivers drop the ball less. Our running backs are, top notch. Our front seven, best coaches. It's almost embarrassment of riches, and it just didn't go our way. I want to thank you for coming on, but you have started your own podcast, an official Apollo's Podcast Week. Can you, tell everybody where that is and where they can find you, and anything else you want to let Apollo fans know, where they can find your work?
Yeah, the official Apollo's Podcast is called the Take Aim Podcast. You can catch that every Tuesday. It's myself and Sean Green on the Apollo's YouTube channel. Subscribe and you'll get a lot of Apollo's content. We have all different videos during the week. You'll see interviews with players post practice and Coach Spurrier and some of the other assistant coaches as well throughout the week. So that's, like I said, that podcast comes out every Tuesday. And you can find me on Twitter at the Tom Alexander. I'll have injury reports, transactions news, anything that happens to come out of practices or the team throughout the week and during the games. You can also follow the team social media accounts at AAF Apollos. It's the same handle on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm on Instagram as well at I Write and I Know Stuff.
I love that Instagram handle. I really do, Tom. Buddy, thank you so much for your time coming on. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. And maybe we'll get you back on one more time here as we're heading off into the championship. How about that, buddy?
Yeah, that sounds good. Anytime, guys.
All right, Tom. Thank you so much, man. Hey, we'll see you at the next home game, all right?
All right, sounds good.
All right,
Thanks.
bye now.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, that was Tom Alexander, team reporter for the Apollos. Cool guy to talk with, man. He really is. He's fun, whether you're on the phone or just live and in person. Good guy. Ren, I think the biggest thing I took out of that conversation, I didn't know this. A win next week clinches a playoff spot.
Yeah, that's what happens when it's a 10-game season. You start 5-0.
Yeah. I hadn't done the math on it, but I mean, you figure we win next week. That's 6, and nobody else can catch up.
Yeah, it's kind of like high school or little league football. You're just not really used to season being that short. So
right.
And the divisions aren't that big. So, but I didn't know that either. But it doesn't surprise me.
It makes sense. It certainly makes sense.
Yes, it makes sense.
So
it'll be interesting. Atlanta seemed to get a little bit of spark when Murray came in. University of Georgia star. Perfect fit for the legends there as far as local celebrity and all that type of thing. But they sort of regressed back to what they were before he came in.
Right.
It's just not a very disciplined execution wise. It's sort of like I sent out a tweet that I think was totally blown up in my face. I said since the iron, excuse me, not the iron, since the Express and the Atlanta Legends have switched quarterbacks, all the 4 best teams are now in the East, and they decided to both get killed this weekend and not put up a fight at all. So so that's wrong. But hey, we'll get to maybe think about this. We'll get to see. At least we'll get to see him play Johnny Football.
Yeah, Johnny Manziel was reported this week that he has signed the player contract with the Alliance, and it was the Hotshots? It was Memphis. Memphis had the rights to him because the way they do that, in case you guys don't know out there, they allocate players to teams based on where you went to school or maybe most recent NFL team or something of that nature. And Johnny Manziel was allocated to the Memphis Express. Now, Memphis has released... No?
He was allocated to the... I don't remember. It wasn't Memphis.
It was Arizona, I think.
I think so, too.
That's what I was about to say. But you might know something that I don't. Is he with Memphis now?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that. All I knew is he signed the player contract, and Arizona released his rights, so he was available to anyone in the league.
Almost.
Okay.
We're getting there.
Okay, help me out. Yeah, help me out here because I may not understand this.
Once a team, like you said, you're allocated to a team, but once that team released their rights because, Arizona released it because they need the roster spot and Johnny was playing up in the CFL at the time, so they released his rights. Then, if you sign a contract with the league, it goes like waiver wire. So worst team, the team with the worst record gets to pick first, and that was Memphis. And they said they've seen Christian Hackenberg for like 3 games. They decided that's bad.
They switched him in our game when they played us.
Yeah. And then Mettenberger's been playing, but he got his ankle hurt like the first drive of Saturday's game. And so they're like, well,
they need a quarterback, and they don't want to go back to Hackenberg.
So Johnny Football is now Memphis Express.
All right. Well, as you said, that should be good for ratings for about a week.
About a week. Well, but what'll be fun for us as Apollo fans because hopefully he'll be in there and playing and learn the playbook when we play them in a few more weeks. We still have to play the Express again.
Right. We do. It'd be in their place this time, unfortunately.
Yes.
May not necessarily see Mike Evans in the building supporting his man. But
Probably not.
Probably not. Right. Probably not. All right, Ren. Well, hey, I tell you what. A couple of things. We're bumping up a little bit close to our hour, but we still have some time left. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to open up the phone line. If anybody out there is listening, you guys want to call in. That number is 864-729-2827. That's 864-729-2827. If you're watching on YouTube, that'll come across in the little scrolly bar right down there here in just a moment. Please remember, we only have one phone line. So if you want to call in and somebody else is on the line, just wait for it to clear, and you guys can call in and do that. But, Ren, I want to go back and talk about this offensive line. Because this offensive line was offensive in this last game. I felt in many ways, like I kept looking up going, is Caleb Benenoch playing right guard? Because that seemed to be where most of the trouble was coming from, to me, most of the night. I don't know if it was that bad. Okay, yeah, it was. It was pretty bad. But this was not a good offensive line performance.
No, it wasn't. And there's a few things that go into it. At the beginning of the year, I was saying Gilbert needs to speed up his progressions.
Mm-hmm.
He just had a bad night,
Right.
When he wasn't pressured, he was inaccurate. And then when he was accurate, the receivers dropped some few balls. And,
right.
Like Tom was saying, there wasn't a lot of separation, like the Hotshots defensive back core got a lot of hands on a lot of balls. So it was tough sledding the whole way. But having said that, Gilbert hangs on to the ball a little bit too long instead of going to it, check, like the guy, like I'm getting pressure, so I'm going to do like one read check down. But he was refusing to do that. He was like one read, two read, and then his pocket presence isn't great. He slides up in the pocket like a lot of teams do, but it seems that he slides and he's trying not to get tackled at the same time. It's sort of hard to explain, but I think he holds on the ball a little bit too long, and his pocket presence as far as feeling pressure is not very good.
Right.
So other quarterbacks that might take a step to the right or the left to be able to, get the ball off or maybe even, continue to run. He's just not there yet. And small sample size, maybe he is, but he definitely wasn't there Saturday night.
Yeah.
So I agree with you with the offensive line, but he's a hard guy to block for.
Fair enough. I will give you that. This offensive line, though, I mean,
was offensive.
It was. It was. I mean, the left tackle. I mean, I don't. It's the same thing we talk about with Donovan Smith in our own guys. I mean, if they're gonna block, I don't know, 70 plays a game, and 3 of them get past him, he did his job for 67 of the plays. Just those 3. Not very good, and they impacted the game. And I don't know that that's the exact numbers. I'm just kind of throwing those out there. But
then when you have a night like they had, everyone has 3 plays.
Yeah.
So 3 plays turn into like 15 plays.
Right.
And then now you got a problem.
Right. And then sometimes your running back does something weird, or your quarterback does something weird, or they hang on to it, and so all of a sudden that extends out to 30. But now half your plays are jacked up, or as you mentioned, maybe you're actually asking your offensive line to hold these guys and block these guys a lot longer than, perhaps you really should. What's really fair of them. So, but yeah, so there's that. This is funny. I was watching some stuff back with my 6-year-old Jude, and was explaining to him the idea of a sack fumble. Because I'm trying to teach him football, I'm trying to teach him the lingo and everything, being a good father. And he just looks at me and goes, "Oh, is that a sackable? A sackable?"
That's fair.
Made me laugh.
That's what we do nowadays. Though we like, we like to make little,
ship the words, push them together, right?
Yeah, make one word. Yeah.
Right. I said, "Son, don't ever say that again." But I will tell everybody about that. I might be the only one who laughed because it was freaking adorable. But anyway, okay, I want to talk about this 10-second runoff rule, Ren, and I need your help on this one. Sure. All right. I know that this is a rule in the NFL. That's fine. Mm-hmm. This 10-second runoff rule cost us the game. And I've seen it cost teams the game in the NFL as well. This is not a new rule. This has been around. I don't understand this rule. Can you help me understand why is this even a thing in the first place to have a 10-second runoff?
It's very simple, because I used to think this all the time when you'd watch teams trying to get down the field. They throw a pass over the middle, don't have any timeouts left. The clock tick, 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 tick. And sometimes you see it where they don't get the snap off and the game ends.
Right.
It happens, a handful of times a year. Here's the problem. If the center runs down there, okay, and they mark the ball, and he just hikes it, and people are all over the place,
Right.
what do you call? You call offsides on the defense, you call false start on the offense. Okay, say you call false start on the offense, all right? Well, think of it this way. Does the center have to hike the ball? Why can't a wide receiver that's down there run over to the spot and hike it and just take the 5-yard penalty? That's what they're trying to prevent. They're trying to prevent, because that's not spirit of the rule. The spirit of the rule is you got to get everybody set and then you hike it. And if you do that, and what that's preventing is what I'm saying. Right. I'm taking it to the absurdium.
Yes, you are.
Now,
but I get what you're saying.
But that's still, why, because if you didn't have the 10-second runoff, teams would do that.
Sure, they would. Yeah.
So they know they have to run up and get set, and when it doesn't happen, it seems like a really unfair rule. But that's the reason it's there, because I would, if I was a head coach, I'd do it every time.
Oh, sure. I get it. I get exactly what you're saying. I don't know.
It just has to be there.
Yeah.
Is it and it's basically because we're humans and we're going to cheat.
Sure. You're gonna do anything. I mean, all's fair in love and war, right? You're gonna do whatever you can, within the bounds of the rules. So, and sometimes even outside of the bounds of the rules.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just,
would you be so upset if it was shoe was on the other foot?
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
it wouldn't. But it would still be one of those. I mean, it's kind of like passing interference calls. Like, I don't like the idea on a defensive passing interference call that they give you the ball at the spot of the foul. I think that's way too much.
They have to do that too.
Do what?
They have to do that too.
No, and I do, and I understand why, and I know why it's like that. I just don't like it. Now, when it happens for the Buccaneers, okay,
or the Apollos, which
but
it did.
It did.
Saturday.
That's right. It did. I in my mind, I'm thinking of being in the stadium at Raymond James.
Which I think was very unfair for Arizona. I mean, Gilbert terribly unthrew that ball, and that defensive back did nothing wrong.
Right.
And Johnson just turned around and and he just ran it like that. Should have, for me, that's a no call.
Right.
Like, I don't care what teams are, but he didn't turn around and he ran into the wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the only reason he did is because it was such a poorly thrown ball.
Right.
And they get like 40 yards on it because Gilbert threw a pass 10 yards threw a pass for 10 yards.
And in those situations, that's when I, as a fan, when it goes our way, that's when I go, okay, I'll take it. And in the back of my mind, the thing I'm thinking at that point is, man, I really don't like that rule, but it worked for us, so I'll take it. Anything we can do to get it down the field, I'll do it. But I
will cheat to win.
I still don't like, and I mean, this is going to be me now talking about whether or not I like a rule, so that nobody wants to hear that. But
no, it's all right.
That's kind of how I feel about it. Like, I know it's the rule, I know it's there. It's fine. I don't hate it as much when it goes our way, but I still kind of do.
No, I'm with you. And that 10-second runoff rule is kind of like, it's something I say, and I know it's very naive and probably untrue. But if it's not, if people were just, this is really dumb, but if people were cool to each other or fair with each other,
right? Like,
you wouldn't need lawyers.
It's true.
Now, I understand, like big international company takeovers. Yeah, you probably need somebody there who sort of knows the ins and outs, and you got to pay that person,
Right.
But like divorce, accidents, it's like if you're just like, if you're fair with the other person, instead of one person trying to screw the other one over as much as possible.
Right.
We don't need lawyers. And that's the same thing with that 10-second runoff. If you're not going to try to like screw the other team by having your wide receiver hike the ball to take the 5-yard penalty so you can have one more shot at the end zone, then we don't have to have the rule. But you're going to do it because you're unethical and you're a cheat. So we have to have the rule.
People suck, man.
Well, winning gets you a lot of things, Brent. Winning gets you a lot of things.
It does, like a trophy, which is something that the Apollos
and
did
more
not
money
do.
and
more money.
sponsors and rings.
Yes. All right. So let's hear. We had that. The punch, Ren. I don't know if you wanted to chime in on that conversation at all. I don't think it was a punch. The thing that got Terrence Garvin ejected from the game.
Yeah, it was an open hand slap, and both the commentators were like, "Yeah, like I don't see it. I
Yeah.
don't see it."
Yeah.
You know.
I mean,
So-
and I mean, it looked like the guys were just,
Yeah,
they were getting in each
they were
other's
in
face.
each other's face, and he pushed him off him, and it happened
Yeah.
to be an open palm to the face mask, and
Yeah.
they called it a punch. So
Yeah, that's
it was their bad. They probably know that. They probably got a call. I will say that as much fun as it was watching, the Alliance the first few weeks with the more loosey-goosey letting things go
Mm-hmm.
has gone out the window.
Yeah, these refs are tightening down, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's almost
this
like
is
they had a
starting to be-
meeting. They had a meeting, say, "Hey guys, we gotta be better."
Yeah,
Call
like that Garrett Gilbert pass interference where the guy had him around the waist. He did one of his I'm going to get rid of it.
Yeah,
The guy couldn't see if he had it or not. Spun him around and slammed him on the ground. Tackled him.
he
And
made the
Gilbert's
play
like,
that should.
"What?"
Yeah,
And then the same thing happened to the Apollos.
right.
The quarterback did a read option, gets there. The guy tackles him. When he gets up, his forearm sort of runs up his face mask. He
Yeah.
looks at the ref, throws his hands up. Oh, there's 15 yards. And it's like, come on, man. I mean, week one, that's they would have laughed at you or
Right.
at the quarterbacks for asking for that. But now they're getting the calls, man.
Right. All right, Ren. Only other note, I've got Elliott Fry. He had one field goal attempt. He made it, and so he remains perfect on the season. He's 12-12. They're still doing a good job passing the ball around. 8 different people recorded receptions for the game.
Yeah.
So you can't do that. You had 5 different players contributing to the run. Now it was only 111 yards. I would think if you got 5 different people contributing to the run, I would hope you'd be a little bit more than that. But still, here's what I've noticed about the Alliance.
I didn't run the ball that much.
These numbers are not nearly as high as they are in the NFL. You get 5 people rushing in the NFL in a game. That team's probably going for more than 111 yards.
It depends on the coach. Spurrier likes to get the ball in a lot of people's hands.
Sure.
All 3 of his running backs got the ball. I'm sure one of those runs is Gilbert, and probably the other one was a wide receiver on end around or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if that's a normal team in the NFL, you probably only 2 running backs. One's a quarterback, and so it'd be 3 or 4. Maybe there's a third running back, but not a lot of coaches. Well, yeah, they do. The jet sweep's pretty popular, so there's your 5. I mean,
right?
I don't know.
Yeah, but the average rushing yards for a team in the NFL is going to be more than 100 yards or 150 yards. You don't think so? I don't know. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I'm just telling you my overall.
I will say that these monster numbers, because we're fantasy football players that you see week in and week out,
right,
don't exist in the there's no receiver that gets 3 touchdowns and 200 yards.
Sure,
there's no quarterback that's throwing 400 yards and 4 touchdowns week in, week out. Somebody will do that in the NFL,
right?
So
our guy Jameis Winston routine. I mean, if he has less than a 300-yard game, it's kind of a disappointment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just expect he's going to be over 300 yards, maybe 350, somewhere around there.
And that's just and that's
Sunday. Normal. Yeah, that's Sunday. That's a day at work. It's a day at the office for Jameis, right? I'll be interested to see what that looks like under a Bruce Arians offense, although we do know that Bruce Arians also likes to take it to the air quite a bit. But Ren, with that, man, do what?
I said, yo.
With that, we really are up against our hour, so I'll throw it over to you, man. Any final thoughts, anything we didn't get to touch on? And when you're done with that, man, take us on out of here.
Well, take us on out of here?
Yeah, the wrap-up stuff.
Do my wrap-up.
Do the thing. Do the thing, Ren. Do the thing.
Yo. Final thoughts, don't panic. A question I threw at Tom was about how Spurrier doesn't run the ball a lot once he's behind.
Mm-hmm.
Tom sort of, came back and he goes, well, they ran it in the first drive. Well, yeah, they weren't behind.
Sure.
And they scored, and then once they got behind, they quit running. But that's sort of Spurrier's MO. Look for that. There's not going to be a lot of defenses out there that's going to be able to hold them to and make them look as bad. I don't think there is any. As you saw there Saturday, I really think they're probably just going to roll right through, the rest of the regular season. They might lose one more, but I doubt it. They get to play Express again. They get to play.
We We got the Legends coming up again.
The Legends again.
Who's the other
we'll
one?
have to play the Iron again, which will be another good game.
That's 3 of our last 4, and then the other one's the Fleet. We're taking on the Fleet this weekend. No.
Right. Which are not this weekend, but we have to play the Fleet.
Yeah, we have the Fleet coming up. Yeah,
and they're really up and down.
Yeah,
like they're a really up and down team. So.
But you say that, we thought that we were going to kind of roll over the Hotshots a little bit this week too. So,
yeah, but once the game started and the announcer started talking about stuff, I was like, I should look that up. And even though we hit it, they had a 3-game losing streak, but really it was their quarterback. And I was sort of waiting for these turnovers to happen.
Right.
They never threw at Razor.
Right.
They never threw towards his way. They found a guy. I can't remember his name. It was number 20. They kept picking on him. They kept going after him. He got a couple pass interference penalties. So they had the game plan and they executed.
Yeah.
We had a bad game, still almost won.
That's the thing to take away from this. We had a bad game and still almost won, if not for what I'm going to call a stupid rule. And definitely a dumb penalty. Like, a penalty, dumb on our part. Like, our guys should not have committed that penalty, is what I mean.
Yeah, he had plenty. He had like 8 seconds left. He had plenty of time to let everyone get set. So we could have had a shot in the end zone for the win, like you said, maybe 2. So everything's still bright in sunny Apollo land. But if you'd like to talk to me about it, or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you can find me on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk professional football.
There you go. And if you guys want to get in touch with me, you can find me at Brent Allen Live on Twitter and on Instagram. And if you want to follow the show, you can do that to thepewtercast@gmail.com as an email. If you want to follow the show on Twitter, you could do that at thepewtercast or at facebook.com/thepewtercast. Guys, make sure you join us next week for Showtime with the Apollos. We'll be right back here Sunday night, 10 o'clock. Phone lines will be open. Who knows who we might have as a special guest next week? It might just be you. Or not. Anyway, listen, you never know. The Orlando Apollos are going to be traveling to Atlanta. We'll be taking on the Legends for the second time. If you guys remember way back in week 1, we opened our season against them. Put a pretty good whooping on them, Ren, but they've had a good little run here recently. Except I think you said that they got their butts handed to them today.
Yeah.
We should win. Yes, we should definitely win. This is Saturday at 2 o'clock, and it will be on TNT if you guys want to watch it, or if you're in the Atlanta area, you guys can head out there. And who knows? Maybe join me at the game. We'll see what happens.
How far is Atlanta?
From me?
Yeah.
6.5, 7 hours.
You're going to drive 7 hours.
It's a good excuse for a trip.
To where?
To Atlanta.
To do what?
God, there's World of Coke. I could go be on the Family Feud. I could crash the Marvel set and go see what movie they're making right now. There's a lot of stuff to do in Atlanta. Hey, I could hit up some comedy clubs because, travel back to that part of my past. We have 2, and they suck. Anyway, with that, we're out of here. You guys have a great week. Go Bucks. Go Apollos. Take aim.
Pew, pew.
Peace out.